My name is Daniel, I'm 29, and for most of my life I believed sacrifice was just another word for love. At least, that's what my parents drilled into me. Family comes first, they'd say, but what they really meant was my brother comes first. I was the older child, the reliable one. The one who stayed quiet during arguments, who gave up the last slice of pizza, who handed down his toys and clothes without complaint. My younger brother, Caleb, was fragile. Born with a chronic heart condition, he grew up shielded, adored, treated like porcelain. And me? I was the shadow, the one expected to give up space, time, and eventually, my future to keep him safe. It started small. I skipped sleepovers because Caleb needed company at night. I gave up soccer because my practices clashed with his appointments. My parents said it wasn't a big deal. You'll have plenty of time for yourself later, Danny. Your brother needs you now. Later never came. By the time I graduated high school, colleges were calling, scholarships were on the table. I remember clutching the acceptance letter from a school across the country, my chest buzzing with hope. But my mom's face fell the moment she read it. Out of state, she whispered, like I'd just confessed to abandoning them. What about Caleb? Who's going to drive him to treatments? Who's going to be here if something happens? My dad folded his arms. You're not going anywhere, Daniel. Your brother's health is more important than your little dreams. Those little dreams were my life. Architecture, travel, freedom. But that night, I folded the letter and shoved it in the back of a drawer, like it had never arrived. I stayed. I always stayed. Even when Caleb got better, stronger than anyone expected, the rules didn't change. If he wanted something, it was mine to give up. My parents called it love. To me, it felt more like erasure. The breaking point came last year. I was offered a promotion at work, one that meant relocating 3 hours away. I sat my parents down at the kitchen table, rehearsing the words in my head. I can't keep putting my life on hold. But before I could even finish, my mom cut me off. Daniel, you can't leave. Caleb just got engaged. He'll need help starting out. You know he's not ready to be on his own. He needs you. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity finally hit me. He's 26. He's healthy. He's getting married. And you still expect me to live for him? My dad's face hardened. That's what family does. You don't walk away. You sacrifice. And that's when it clicked. They didn't want a son. They wanted an insurance policy. I looked at them across that table, my hands shaking, and realized for the first time, maybe I didn't owe them anything anymore. The silence after my father's words was heavy, like a stone pressing down on my chest. Sacrifice. That word had become the anthem of my life, and I was sick of it. I pushed back my chair and stood. You don't mean sacrifice, I said quietly. You mean servitude. You've spent my entire life grooming me to give everything up so Caleb never has to lift a finger. My mother gasped like I'd cursed at her. Don't talk about your brother that way. You know he's had it hard. I slammed my hand on the table. He had it hard when he was a kid. But now, he's fine. He's healthy. He's starting a family. I'm the one stuck in this house like a backup generator, waiting for your next demand. My mom's face twisted, and my dad's jaw locked. But before either of them could reply, Caleb walked in. He must have heard the yelling because he had that smug half-smile he always wore when things were about to tilt in his favor. What's going on? He asked, glancing between us. Dad didn't hesitate. Your brother thinks he should move out, even though you still need him. Caleb laughed. actually laughed. Move out? Danny, what would you even do without us? Who's going to cover rent? Who's going to help with bills? Who's going to, he gestured vaguely, be there when things go wrong? It was like a punch to the gut. Because in that moment, it wasn't just my parents who saw me as disposable, it was Caleb too. Don't worry, I said, forcing a bitter smile. I'll figure it out. The real question is, what are you going to do when I'm not here to play savior? His smirk faltered. My parents exchanged a quick glance. For once, they looked nervous. I didn't wait for an answer. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and walked out. The air outside was sharp and cold, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed inside that house. That night, I didn't go back. I stayed at a cheap motel off the highway, staring at the ceiling until morning. My phone buzzed non-stop. First calls, then texts, all variations of the same message. Come home. Stop being dramatic. Family sticks together. But one message stood out, and it wasn't from my parents. It was from Caleb. Don't be selfish, Danny. Your life belongs to this family. You know that. I read it 3 times, my chest tight with anger and disbelief. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just walking away for a night. I was done. For the first time in years, I woke up without an alarm, without a list of errands that weren't mine, without my parents' voices echoing in my head. The motel ceiling was cracked, the sheets smelled like bleach, and yet I felt freer than I ever had at home. But freedom doesn't come cheap. I had some savings, sure, but my entire paycheck had always been funneled into the household. Groceries, utilities, gas for Caleb's endless appointments, all of it came out of my account. Standing there in that motel bathroom, brushing my teeth over a chipped sink, I realized I didn't even know what it meant to live for myself. I went to work that morning like nothing had happened. My manager raised an eyebrow when she saw the bags under my eyes. Rough night? She asked. You could say that, I muttered. By noon, my phone was vibrating so much I shoved it in my desk drawer. When I finally checked, there were over 30 missed calls, mostly from my mom. But one voicemail caught my attention. It was my dad, his tone sharp as a knife. Daniel, this nonsense ends today. Caleb's got his doctor's appointment tomorrow and he needs a ride. You better be here. Don't make us regret everything we've done for you. I nearly laughed out loud. Regret everything they'd done for me? What had they done, besides chain me to Caleb's side like a guard dog? That night, I ignored them again. Instead, I walked the city streets, letting neon lights and distant traffic drown out my thoughts. For the first time, I considered the possibility of taking that promotion, the one that meant moving away. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was survival. But when I returned to the motel, I found something waiting for me that made my blood run cold. An envelope slid under my door. No return address, just my name scrawled in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. If you walk away now, you're killing your brother. Do you want that on your conscience? My hands trembled as I read it. Not just because of the manipulation, I was used to that, but because for the first time, my parents had put it in writing. They weren't asking anymore. They were demanding. They were telling me my life belonged to Caleb. And I realized, if I didn't draw a line here, I might never get the chance again. I must have read that note 100 times. The words seemed to throb on the page like they were alive. You're killing your brother. That was my parents' favorite weapon, guilt. They wielded it sharper than any knife. Every time I wanted to choose myself, they dangled Caleb's condition in front of me like a leash. And every time, I caved. But this time, something snapped. I folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I wanted proof, a reminder of how far they were willing to go. The next day, I didn't show up at the house. I didn't drive Caleb to his appointment. I didn't even answer their calls. Instead, I walked into my boss's office with a single sentence ready on my lips. "I'll take the promotion." Her eyebrows shot up. "The relocation one? You're sure?" "Yes." My voice shook, but I held her gaze. "I'm sure." She smiled slowly, like she'd been waiting for me to grow a spine. "Then congratulations. You just changed your life." The rush of relief was so strong I nearly stumbled. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing you had wings. But of course, my parents weren't about to let me fly without a fight. That evening, as I packed up my things from the motel, there was a furious knock at the door. I opened it to find my father standing there, red-faced, fists clenched. My mother hovered behind him, eyes wet but cold. "Dad didn't waste time. You think you can just walk away from this family?" he barked. "From your responsibilities?" I crossed my arms. "They're not responsibilities. They're shackles. And I'm done wearing them." His face darkened. "You ungrateful little—" Mom cut him off, her voice trembling. "Daniel, please. If you leave, Caleb will fall apart. You know he can't survive without you." I took a deep breath, my chest pounding. Then maybe it's time he learns to survive. Maybe it's time you learn to stop sacrificing one son for the other. The words hung in the air like thunder. For once, neither of them had a quick reply. And in that silence, I knew I had finally broken free. They stood in the doorway of that motel room like two ghosts from a nightmare I thought I'd left behind. My dad's chest heaved, his jaw set so tight I could hear his teeth grind. My mom wrung her hands, whispering Caleb's name under her breath like it was a prayer. Finally, Dad jabbed a finger at me. "If you walk out on this family, don't come crawling back when you realize you've made a mistake." I met his glare, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "The mistake was thinking my life belonged to you." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe even fear. I'd never spoken to him like that before. But he covered it quickly, huffing as he turned on his heel. My mom lingered a moment longer, her eyes glassy. "You'll regret this, Daniel," she whispered. "When your brother needs you and you're not there, you'll regret it forever." I didn't answer. I simply shut the door. The lock clicked, and with it, a weight slid off my shoulders. For the first time, I wasn't their obedient son. I was just me. 2 weeks later, I packed my car and drove to the new city where my promotion was waiting. The skyline was different, the air sharper, but it felt like stepping into sunlight after years underground. I found a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was mine. My job consumed my days, and I welcomed it. Work didn't demand my soul, it demanded my effort, and that was something I could give freely. At night, I cooked for myself, played music too loud, and sat on the balcony with no one to call me selfish for enjoying silence. But peace never lasts when people think they own you. One Friday night, just as I was settling in with takeout and a movie, my phone buzzed. It was Caleb. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. His message was short. "They can't pay the mortgage without you. Dad says if you loved us, you'd help. Don't abandon us now." I stared at the screen, the old guilt twisting like a knife. But beneath it, something stronger flared, anger. For once, I didn't type back right away. I just let the message sit there, glowing on my phone, daring me to answer. And I realized, this was the real test. Not leaving. Not moving. But refusing to be dragged back in. I sat there staring at Caleb's message until the screen dimmed. If you loved us, you'd help. The words felt familiar, recycled from every guilt trip I'd ever heard growing up. Only now, instead of swallowing them, I felt something burn in my chest. Fury. I typed back slowly, each word deliberate. Love isn't slavery. The house isn't my responsibility. Figure it out. It took less than a minute for my phone to light up with his reply. Wow. So you're just gonna let mom and dad suffer? After everything they did for you? I laughed out loud. For years I'd believed that line. Everything they did for me. But when I pulled the memories apart, what exactly had they done? Fed me. Housed me. That wasn't generosity. That was basic parenting. Meanwhile, they'd stolen every chance I had to live my own life. I didn't bother responding. I tossed my phone onto the couch and turned back to my half-eaten takeout. For the first time in years, I chose myself over their noise. But the quiet didn't last. 2 days later, I came home from work to find a letter taped to my apartment door. No envelope this time, just paper slapped against the wood with duct tape. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. My mother's. Daniel, your father is sick. Caleb can't handle this on his own. We need you. Please come back before it's too late. My chest tightened. Dad's sick. I didn't know if it was true or another trick, but the words burrowed into me. Old instincts screamed at me to get in the car and drive straight back. I sank onto the couch, the letter trembling in my hands. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Caleb. If Dad dies because you weren't here, his blood is on your hands. The guilt hit me like a sucker punch. My throat closed, my eyes burned, and for a moment I actually believed him. But then I remembered the envelope from the motel. The threats. The manipulation. The way they twisted every choice into betrayal. I crumpled the letter and whispered to myself, not this time. But deep down, I knew the war wasn't over. They weren't going to stop until I broke completely. And the scariest part? I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold the line. The next week felt like walking through a minefield. Every day, another message, another attempt to drag me back. Some were pleading, some were furious, and some were laced with venom that made my stomach turn. Caleb, selfish bastard. Hope you enjoy your new life while Mom cries herself to sleep. Mom, Daniel, you're breaking this family apart. Don't do this to us. Dad, or maybe Caleb pretending to be him, I won't forgive you for abandoning us. Ever. I stopped answering entirely. Blocked their numbers. Changed my email. But cutting the cord doesn't mean the echo disappears. Their voices lived in my head, replaying every accusation, every plea. At work, I buried myself in projects, pulling late nights just to avoid going home to an empty apartment and the silence that came after. Sometimes I caught myself hovering over the phone, wondering if maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was cruel. Maybe I was heartless. Then one night, as I sat on the balcony with the city lights glowing below, a knock rattled my door. My heart dropped. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Caleb stood there. He looked different than I remembered, leaner, sharper, with an edge of smugness that had curdled into something darker. He didn't even wait for an invitation. He pushed past me, tossing his jacket on my chair like he owned the place. "You're really doing this?" he asked, his voice low and venomous. "Leaving us to rot while you play house in the city?" I clenched my jaw. "Get out, Caleb." He laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. You think you can erase us? You think you can erase me? You've been my crutch since day one. Without you, I wouldn't have made it through half my life. And you know what? That's your job. That's why you exist. The words cut deep, but they also lit something inside me, anger so sharp it steadied my hands. No, I said firmly, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. That's what Mom and Dad told you. That's what they trained me to believe. But it's a lie. My life isn't yours. It never was. For the first time, Caleb's confidence wavered. His smirk twitched, his eyes narrowed. He took a step closer, trying to loom over me. You walk away now, he whispered, and you'll regret it when they're gone. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. I stared back, unblinking. Maybe. But I'd rather regret leaving than regret never living. The silence between us was so thick it felt like the walls were holding their breath. And then, Caleb did something I'll never forget. He smiled again, slow and chilling. We'll see about that. And he walked out, leaving me alone with a fear I hadn't felt in years. The fear that my family wasn't just going to guilt me back. They were going to destroy me if I didn't comply. After Caleb's visit, I barely slept. His last words echoed in my head like a curse. We'll see about that. 2 days later, I found out what he meant. When I got to work, my manager was waiting by my desk, her arms crossed. Daniel, we need to talk, she said in that clipped tone that made my stomach churn. She led me into a conference room and shut the door. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a post, public, spreading fast. It was from a brand new account with no name attached, but the message was clear. Some people look like heroes on the outside, but behind closed doors, they abandon their sick families to chase selfish dreams. My brother Daniel left our parents drowning in debt and my father on his deathbed. He refuses to come home, refuses to help. Is this the kind of man you want leading your projects? Beneath the text were photos, me carrying boxes into my new apartment, me sitting on my balcony, me walking into the office. Candid, close-up, invasive. My chest went ice cold. Caleb. It had to be. I looked up at my manager, words caught in my throat. She sighed. Daniel. I want to believe you. I really do. But clients are already calling. They don't want bad press tied to their projects. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. So what? I'm supposed to defend myself against lies. Her eyes softened. You need to handle this, Daniel. Fast. Otherwise. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I left work early that day, my head spinning, fury and fear wrestling in my chest. Caleb hadn't just followed me, he was sabotaging me. My own brother, the one I was raised to protect, was tearing my life apart piece by piece because I dared to leave. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the crumpled envelope I'd kept from the motel. Proof of their manipulation. Proof that my family's love had always come with shackles. And for the first time, a thought I'd never let myself consider took root. Maybe the only way to be free wasn't just leaving. Maybe it was cutting them out completely. Forever. I didn't eat that night. I didn't sleep either. I just sat there, staring at the walls of my apartment, listening for footsteps in the hallway, half convinced Caleb was going to show up again with another threat, or worse. By morning, my decision was made. I wasn't going to let them strangle me with guilt anymore. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything, the motel letter, the text messages, even screenshots of Caleb's post. I wasn't sure if I'd ever need it in court, but for once, I wanted the truth on my side. The breaking point came 3 days later when I returned home from work to find an envelope taped to my door again. No handwriting this time, just a printed note. You can run, but you can't escape family. Stop this nonsense and come home, or we'll make sure you have nothing left. My hands shook as I read it. That wasn't guilt anymore. That was a threat. I called the police. The officer who arrived was calm but firm. Do you have proof these messages are from your family? I showed him everything, the texts, the post, the notes. His expression darkened as he flipped through the screenshots. This isn't just family drama anymore, he said. This is harassment. If it escalates, it could become criminal. You have every right to protect yourself. Protect myself. Those words hit me harder than any guilt trip ever had. For years, I believed my job was to protect Caleb. But now, the roles had flipped. I was the one under attack. That night, I filed a restraining order. My hands trembled as I signed the paperwork, but when it was done, I felt something I hadn't in years: control. Still, part of me grieved. Not for them, but for the illusion I'd clung to all my life. The illusion that family meant unconditional love. That illusion was gone, and in its place was something colder but truer: survival. And as I stood at my window, watching the city glow below, I realized the final step was still ahead. I had to say the words out loud. To them. To myself. I don't belong to you anymore. The hearing for the restraining order was set a month later. I almost didn't go. Part of me still wanted to crawl back into the old role, the obedient son who kept the peace. But when I walked into that courtroom and saw Caleb sitting there with his smug grin, my parents flanking him like generals, something inside me hardened. The judge read through the evidence, the texts, the letters, the screenshots of Caleb's smear post. Every word I'd saved was now echoing in that silent room. I didn't look at them, not once. I kept my eyes forward. When it was over, the judge cleared his throat. Based on the evidence, I find sufficient grounds to grant a restraining order. The respondents are ordered to cease all contact with Mr. Daniel. The gavel came down. Just like that, it was official. My mother gasped. My father muttered something under his breath. Caleb shot me a glare sharp enough to cut glass. But I didn't flinch. For once, their power was gone. Outside the courthouse, I took a long breath, the kind that fills your lungs all the way to the bottom. The sky was wide, the air crisp, and for the first time, I felt it fully: freedom. It wasn't easy after that. Some nights the guilt still crept in, whispering that I was heartless, that I'd abandoned them. But then I'd remind myself of the truth: they hadn't wanted a son. They'd wanted a sacrifice. And I refused to die on that altar. Months passed. I built a new life, brick by brick. Friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could give. A job that challenged me without consuming me. A small apartment that felt like a kingdom because every inch of it was mine. One evening, sitting on my balcony as the city lights blinked on, I whispered the words I should have said years ago. My life belongs to me. And for the first time, I truly believed it.